afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside sunny Louisville, Kentucky, and in Maryland, my good friend, esteemed colleague, and happy Orioles fan, John Webster. How you doing, John?
Hey, Gary, I'm doing real good, man. Doing real good. Another great weekend, another great week of sports. Orioles are going to the playoffs this year, the first time since 2016. Absolutely thrilled about that. We'll talk about that either later today on another episode. But sports is just as always great, and I know you're ready to dive into it. And
Yes,
first, before we do that, John Pitt, how you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Once again, I don't know how we're going to fit this in. There's a lot of stuff going on in the sports world these days. We're going to try to make it work, though.
Oh, I tell you, man, it's just like there's so much we had to leave on the cutting room floor, so to speak, before we started taping here. But let's just get right into it, man. A great weekend of NFL football. Let's see. Let me do the rundown. Okay, the Washington Commanders are 2-0. The Baltimore Ravens are 2-0. At least the last I checked, they still were. Let's see, who else is 2-0? Oh, and the Dallas Cowboys are 2-0. And you have to be impressed with all three teams and their victories this past weekend. I don't know which is more impressive, that Washington overcame, what was it, like an 18-point lead to beat Denver. The Ravens winning, beating the Bengals, and that was kind of a dogfight there, or the Cowboys just completely obliterating the New York Jets. John, I'm gonna throw it to you. I'll say, for the record, I'm gonna say Washington's was most impressive because they did it on the road. They did it against Sean Payton, who gets a lot more credit for winning one Super Bowl than any coach I've ever seen, and one quarterback who gets more who's won one Super Bowl and gets more credit than anyone I've ever seen. But to overcome an 18-point deficit on the road is impressive.
Well, I'll come back to the Commanders last. I see that that burned a hole in your Spurs right from the beginning, Sean Payton and the whole New Orleans thing. But we'll come back to that last. Baltimore Ravens, great win. Gut check, as Coach Joe Gibbs used to say. Ravens were missing several starters. Odell Beckham got hurt during the game, and they pulled it out. Lamar Jackson had a really good game. The defense locked down when they needed to lock down. As I said last week, Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson are going to get better together each week. And I sincerely mean that. They are going to learn each other's traits, learn each other's habits, non-habits. And that offense that Monken is putting in, Jackson and Monken are going to be so in sync by the end of the season, it's going to be unreal. The Cowboys, they had a game. Let me see if I got this right. They played the New York JV team the first week of the season, and they played the New York varsity team this week. So all you can do for the Cowboys, you play who's in front of you. That's all you can do. And they're 2-0. And they're 2-0. They deserve to be 2-0. They beat two teams who were in front of them. That's what you got to do. They don't make the schedule. They just got to execute the schedule and beat who is in front of them. Good game for them. Jets struggled on offense, as we saw. Difficult for them. Cowboys can't say anything. They're 2-0. Before we get to the Commanders, let's throw in the Philadelphia Eagles and the Giants. Giants down 21-0, I think. Came back 131-28. Hats off to them. But Saquon Barkley is injured. They're projecting 3 weeks. Saquon Barkley saying no weeks. Stay tuned and see what happens. If Barkley's not there, that puts a lot of weight on the shoulders of Daniel Jones. Let's see what happens. You already know what I think is going to happen, Gary. The Philadelphia Eagles, good win. They beat the Minnesota Vikings Thursday night. Vikings are, I think, if they don't get it turned around, I think as they're starting to project and talk about, speculate. Kirk Cousins may be on the trading block. We'll see what happens with that. Eagles won, but I don't think they're on all cylinders yet. I think they're still struggling. I think the offense is not where it should be. Keep in mind, this is not exactly the same Eagles team as last year. They've had departures on both sides of the ball. So people thinking that they're going to walk through and win the NFC East, it's not necessarily going to happen. Matter of fact, in my world, it is not going to happen. They will not win the NFC East. 2-0, though. Washington Commanders. 2-0. They beat Arizona, and they beat the Denver Broncos. Losing 21-3, put things together in the second half, and won the game 35-33. Great win for the Commanders. Eric Bieniemy called an unbelievable game as the offensive coordinator. Sam Howell played really well. And somebody that I've been telling everybody, when he gets healthy, is going to play well and make a difference. Chase Young had a really good game. Some, couple of penalties here and there. But all in all, he played great and caused havoc on that line. I love having him back. And I will continue to say this to everybody, Gary. He will be a difference maker on that front line. I am convinced of that. This week, the Commanders are playing the Buffalo Bills. Well, everybody said they've had Arizona and they've had Denver. Okay, you get Buffalo. We'll see what's going to happen. But I couldn't be more happier for the Commanders. I am getting ready to take another step in my possible return back to the Commanders as a fan. I have a Commanders jersey. I made contact with a friend of mine who has a promotional company, a apparel company, and he's looking into now putting a number on this jersey for me, putting my name on the back of this jersey. We're moving closer to coming back to the Washington Commanders.
All right. Well, good for you, John. I'll say it like this. Sunday, and again, I watched more the tail end of that game because, in this region, we got Ravens, Bengals, and we could talk about Joe Burrow and the Bengals at some point, probably after they're 0-3. But I think for the first time in a while, I really felt more of a connection with that team, like a certain fandom. And, after they clicked over and talked about how they overcame a 21-3 deficit and were ahead. And really, other than say that miracle Hail Mary I've seen those kind of plays happen. I saw Jacksonville win a game like that, like about 10 years ago. But the outcome in that pass really doesn't dim what was an impressive victory. I agree with everything you said about Sam Howell from, excuse me, from looking at the highlights and really just kind of look at some other little things, other analysis about his poise, his composure, everything. And let's not forget the running back, who added a dimension as well. And I do think that Riverboat Ron has a good team to work with. And Eric Bieniemy has already made an impact. Maybe what he said earlier about their toughness, maybe they have taken it to heart, because any other year, an 18-point deficit probably would have been a bigger deficit. Would you agree? I mean, just given the mindset of how that team worked and how those guys I don't know, they just didn't seem to respond
Previous
to
years,
adversity.
I would tend to agree with you. When they got behind, it was time to mail it in. This team, I see something different with it. I feel something different with it. And I just think they're going to be in the thick of things this year, Gary. I really do.
Well, I think a couple more games I'll be a believer, but here's what I like about this team in both games. Trailing both at halftime, and they come out and they make adjustments, and they they win games. That's the thing. And that's where I believe that the enemy influence is obvious, because how many times have you seen them over the years? And I'll just use the last 5 years as a sample. Have you seen them overcome a halftime deficit, no matter how small or how big it is? I can't really recall that many, unless they were playing the absolute worst team. And I guess what I'm trying to say is they used to play down to their competition, play up or down to their competition. Again, maybe a couple more wins, I'll be more of a believer. And what I was saying at the outset, excuse me, pardon me, again, allergies, about Sean Payton. Sean Payton's criticism, or my criticism of Sean Payton, has more to do with some of his post-game comments about Russell Wilson. And I'm thinking Russell Wilson wasn't the guy that went out there and blew an 18-point lead. I figure he did enough, and he helped lead you back. And I think that was a bit misplaced. But be that as it may, it's more about what Washington did that I'm impressed with than say what Denver didn't do in the second half. And those halftime adjustments, I think, will bode well for them. Thing about football, John, we say all the time, or we hear coaches say all the time, it's about playing, 4 quarters, 60 minutes. And that's the one thing that Washington has to do. And you could probably look toward Dallas as an example of how to do it. Now, John, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing. Stop calling the Giants the JV team, because let's get right down to it. The Jets will always be the JV team in New York. I know where your prejudices are, but Zach Wilson is the quarterback for the New York Jets right now. You're going to call them the varsity in New York right now? Everything you said about Daniel Jones makes a lot of sense, because this is his team right now. If Saquon Barkley misses snaps or games, right now, until he's healthy, it is Daniel Jones's team, and everything you said makes sense, especially in light of him being Mr. Big Contract, much like Lamar Jackson, much like Joe Burrow. And again, it's up to him to kind of put up or shut up. But never, ever, ever, please, again, refer to the Giants as the JV. And I'm not a Giants fan, but let's just call it what it is. Who has a Super Bowl more recently?
Well, I'll just say this. They both are in very tenable positions. Both of them are. I think they have each other on the schedule this year. We'll see what's what when they play each other, but it's not a good situation for either team. One team is missing one of the best quarterbacks ever. Another team is missing one of the best running backs in the league right now. It's not good either way. Not good either way. So we'll see. We'll see. Understand what you're saying, but we'll see what's going to happen, Gary.
Yeah. But, one thing, since we're talking about a little bit about the AFC East, and I can remember, for all of our praise of the NFC East being the, top to bottom best division in football, I think right now we have to take the Miami Dolphins seriously in the AFC East. John, I don't want to pile any dirt on your New England Patriots. But again, let's not talk about the team that lost. Let's talk about the team that won and how they did it. Miami looks like a total package right now, and I don't think that they should be discounted compared to Kansas City or anybody else right now in the AFC. I think after 2 games, they really do look good. And to go into New England and win a game like that, I thought was really making a statement. To me, that was a statement win, no matter what the state of the Patriots is right now. I do think it's more about what the Dolphins did than what the Patriots didn't do.
Well, I don't know if I mentioned it to you earlier, but Miami definitely is a good team. Heard the story about Mike McDaniel. Really got a lot of respect for him. And quietly, except when they play New England, quietly rooting for him because he's really gone through a couple things and he's stuck to it and moved forward. Mm-hmm. Nothing but the utmost respect for that guy. And also respect for him as a coach. They have an unbelievable team. I mean, come on, you got Waddle and you got Tyreek Hill. Which one you going to not double team? Really? England was playing 6 defensive backs sometimes, and one of them was back as far as 40 or 45 yards. So they're tough. I mean, Tua is very accurate. The biggest concern any of us have with Tua is his injuries. Can he stay healthy? They talked about in the offseason how he learned all over again how to fall so he could avoid injury. So, hey, man, they're tough. They beat New England. Hats off to them. I will still say I think New England is going to be a team to be reckoned with. Now, they start off with a hard schedule.
I agree.
They had the first week, who do they have? Philadelphia. Then they had Miami. Then they got the Jets this week. Say what you want about the Jets. The Jets defense is A+ defense, man. They are. Yeah. They're tough. And then they still got to play the Raiders. They still got to play the Dolphins twice. They still got to play the Bills twice. It's the Cowboys, the Commanders. It's not an easy schedule. It's not an easy schedule.
Yeah. I think my problem with the Jets, and full disclosure, there was a time in the late 90s that I really did admire the Jets, when it would seem like they were trying to become competitive again. My problem really has to do with Zach Wilson, that I'm glad they kept him from a standpoint of, you have insurance after Rodgers went down, but Sunday just really showed that all of his deficiencies again. I mean, yeah, he got the keys to the offense, and maybe he won that game against Buffalo on adrenaline, and he rose to the moment, but he had a chance to rise against the Cowboys and just got smacked down to the turf or had ball smacked out of the air. And it seemed like they could have run the ball against Dallas, as opposed to pass. But that's a coaching thing. If you really thought that Zach Wilson was going to be the answer to beating the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, I attribute that to coaching as well as the quarterback. And I'm sure after watching that game that John Pitt would agree. I'm hearing crickets, but okay. Anyway, hey, let's talk about college football, because we probably had the early game of the year Saturday night, Sunday morning, more emphasis on Sunday morning with Colorado. We don't have enough time to really get into the whole thing about Dion, once again proving the doubters wrong, and the opposing coach to come back from what was 11 points down late in the game to to force overtime and then win it in double overtime. That says more about what he's done with that team. And the thing about Dion, as he walked the sidelines, he was really, really under control. You hardly heard him say a word when they had the camera on him. It was like you could tell he had guys in his ear, on the headphones telling him, say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And all you saw was him kind of nodding. And he just let his coaches do their thing. And then his son did his thing. The composure they showed in a game like that, yeah, they were playing at home. But again, that was a game where they got smacked in the mouth often. Travis Hunter is out for I'll say a few games with a lacerated liver on what many people are calling a dirty hit. But the way that Colorado responded to that, now I'm going to say it's coaching and it's talent. And no matter what you say about Colorado State again hit them in the mouth early and often. They took the blows and then they counterpunched.
Well, hats off to Colorado. Won a good game, major comeback, gut check, whatever you want to call it. There are only 2 quarterbacks in the state of Colorado that have ever had first and 98 and got touchdowns.
Yeah,
only 2 quarterbacks in the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
One of them is Shedeur Sanders. The other is John Elway. And both of them had to do it under pressure and with very important drives.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders is showing, he's been showing. I said it last week. People are talking about, if he would be able to do it. He did this at Jackson State. He's doing it at Colorado. He was a top 10 or 15 prospect coming out of high school. I have said that over and over again. To think that this kid did not have the ability is just not true. He is a very good quarterback. He is an elite quarterback, and he has some games coming up next 2 weeks. They got Oregon with Bo Nix, and then they got USC with Caleb Williams. Those are going to be some really tough games. Really tough games.
Yeah.
But they're 3-0. One of the things that I said last week, and I saw it again Saturday night. And Coach Prime is going to get it corrected, but it won't. I don't think it'll be totally correct until next season. His interior line, they're going to have to get bigger.
I think he even said that himself, to some extent. Yeah. I mean, without throwing shade on his players.
Yeah. He's doing a good job of what they have now. And I shouldn't say it like that because they're playing well. These are good linemen, but they need to add some depth and a little bit more size to what they have. Great job of the line coaches and the offensive coordinators because they're calling plays to take advantage of what they have, taking advantage of the strengths of Shedeur Sanders and taking advantage of the strength of the line. And they're doing a good job. They're doing a tremendous job. Colorado State played the game very physical. My personal opinion, I think they wanted to be physical. I don't think as a whole they wanted to be dirty, but they wanted to play, old term, Gary, they wanted to play as far to the whistle and after the whistle as possible they could without getting a penalty. Now, they got their share of penalties. I don't think Colorado State's coach was concerned about the penalties. What do I mean? I'm not saying that he's coaching them to get penalties. I'm not saying he's coaching them to be dirty. What I am saying, he's coaching them in this situation. I don't think he believed he had the talent level to match Colorado in a shootout. So they wanted to make it as muddy of a game as possible, slow it down somewhat, control possessions. In the first half, the possession was so one-sided towards Colorado State because Colorado had a lot of 3 and outs. They couldn't really get moving. Now, here's the thing. You can say that this showed how you can beat Colorado. But keep in mind, every team doesn't play the way Colorado State plays. There are more teams out there that may want to play the way Colorado plays, which is up and down, and they won't be looking for penalties and personal fouls and that those kinds of things slow the game down. The sad thing was, unfortunate thing, Travis Hunter is going to be out 3 or 4 weeks with a lacerated liver. That's a rough one. Sorry that happened to him. The kid from Colorado State, I read today in the paper, him as well as his parents are receiving death threats. Just my personal opinion, Gary. what the kid did was not a good hit. Should not have happened.
No.
But death threats to the kid, death threats to the parents,
Unnecessary.
that's not right either. That's not right either. So that's all I want to say. We don't delve into a lot of stuff like that on this show. That's as far as I want to go with it. And I just want to say kudos to Coach Prime in Colorado. They're still percolating, or as I like to say, they're cooking with hot sauce and grits. They got it going.
That's a great analogy. To wrap it up with Colorado State, I think the thing that they wanted to prove was their physicality. The thing about that game, it was what you'd call, what a lot of coaches, and we've used this term on here a lot, that was a slobber knocker game.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time I heard that term was when Willie Jeffries was coaching Howard, and I knew exactly what he meant. I mean, it was a slugfest, it was a slobber knocker, and really, at times, with the penalties, I mean, it was almost like a street fight. Literally and figuratively. And I think that was another aspect to the game that I really, really admired, because win or lose, that's the way we remember football from back in the day. And that's that's a style that people lament is missing now. And I credit Colorado State for really sticking with it against, I'm gonna say, superior physical talent.
Yeah.
In terms of Colorado style, and alluding to what you were saying about their interior linemen, what Deion has really done is, even with his linemen, he's recruited guys much in the style like he played. I mean, they're physical and they're fast. I don't want to say it's more of a finesse style, because when you're one of the big uglies in the middle, there's nothing finesse about that. But those guys can move. And I think now he's probably going to get guys that can stand there, put their hands in the dirt on both sides of the ball, really try to get to the quarterback as well as protect the quarterback. But you have to like the kind of style that they're playing now. It's working. They're going to get tested at Oregon. I mean, they're going to be tested, obviously, the next 2 weeks. And at worst, they'll be 3-2, but I think they have a very good chance to be 4-1, maybe 5-0. And yeah, I said that because if you can win a game like that against an opponent that was not scared of you, then you can go into places, into hostile environments, and win games if you stick with that same style.
Yeah, the ceiling is wide open. He's already surpassed any expectations that people had. It's just a marvelous job being done with coaching and developing these young men. I can't find words to say for Coach Prime. He's, and these kids as well. They're playing well. They are in a cohesive unit. They're down by 11. They didn't turn and sulk and not continue to compete. They found the way to win. And Shedeur Sanders, man, he's a bad man. And
he certainly is. And at some point we're going to have a discussion about Shiloh Sanders too. That's the thing about those two guys that I really like about how they've adjusted at both levels that they've played at. Hey, before we go, because really we got to run, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the upcoming game between your Notre Dame Fighting Irish and my Ohio State Buckeyes.
Hey, just be there or be square. They're coming into South Bend, one of the greatest stadiums that you will ever see.
Behind the Horseshoe.
Oh, no. The Horseshoe, the Horseshoe and the Big House wants to be what we are. They want to be able to hear the hallowed halls of victory. They want to be able to see Newt Rockne, the Four Horsemen, Joe Theismann, Eric Parsegian, Lou Holtz, Rocket Ishmael, Tim Brown. They want to see one of the many and be a part of Absolutely tremendous success.
And your Irish want to be what Ohio State was not too long ago, national champions.
Gary,
More
as I
recently than your
as
Irish.
as I look at the championships that Notre Dame has gathered over the 100 years, I don't wish to be like any other institution. I am Notre Dame.
Okay. Well, let's just hope that you all are relevant on Saturday.
How's that for a promotional speech?
For somebody that probably hasn't set foot on campus, too, other than
And
as a tourist.
and it's in my bucket list. I want to go to South Bend. Goodness gracious, I would love it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in terms of bucket list, I think this might be a season that I cross Columbus off mine for football because Maryland plays there in a few weeks, and I think I'm really going to try to make an effort to go up there and see it. Look, I'll be in Maryland red, but I might have like a little Ohio State shirt underneath because that's my family's team. I rooted for them back in the days of Archie Griffin. I met Archie Griffin a few years back, and that was a thrill for me. The thing about this, as we wrap this up, is you still got to love college football for what it is, for all those traditions. And believe me, I do admire and respect Notre Dame for everything that they achieved because, John, we've been alive long enough to see a lot of the glory years. We've seen the down years for both programs, and here they are right back on the stage. And folks, that should be the game, one of many games you should watch this weekend because, of course, it's sports. We still got pennant races going on. We've got college football. And, of course, the greatest, we have the NFL. So watch all the sports that you can because you're going to need it after that hard week of work. It's a release, and there are plenty of options for you to release your passions on. John, take it away.
Hey, y'all, another great week in sports. Watch some college football, watch some NFL football, watch some baseball, soccer, doesn't matter. Make sure you watch some sports. Come back and see us again real soon. Take care. See you.